Okay, guys and girls, let's have a little bit of a conversation premised on the thought for today. A short video to leave you with something to ponder. For those of you that are very fixed in your opinions and beliefs, for those of you that think that there really is truth out there to be determined by people en masse, as if there is actually something that's has a variety of realism and truism which is dependable for all across the board. Now, I'm pretty sure that the vast majority would be aware that we all think very, very differently, and we only have to look at mainstream TV and all that stuff that's going on, and we've got very distinct belief systems. One party would swear blind that this is true, the next party would swear blind that that is true, and invariably within time they will swap over and deny that they ever considered the other belief remotely pertaining to themselves. Now, I've been speaking about reading this book, right? And for those of you that have heard, you would probably have heard of Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, who was one of the founders of the Theosophical Society, which is a society and a body of people that believe that via ecstasy we can know God. I can testify for that on numerous occasions that indeed God and ecstasy come together. It is apparent that they really do appear to be the same thing, and so in my book, what's my book called these days? It's called A Journey to the Self. It used to be called Closer to God. Some of you will be aware. Now it's called A Journey to the Self, which incidentally is the same thing. The self, in real terms, is non-existent as far as the human being goes. So we have to go back even further. We have to go even higher. We have to even go more metaphysical to find the self, which ultimately is spirit. There is something here, spirit, consciousness. We cannot deny that. We cannot destroy it. Everything else we can destroy. Any notion of a physical reality we can dismantle. Quantum physicists have done this for over 120 years. The Buddhist Hindus have done it for thousands of years. So this book is about the beginnings of the supernatural, a log of a great deal of the supernatural from many continents. And within this book they speak about all varieties of supernatural, and it really is quite fascinating to go back through the years to see what people were believing, experiencing, how and why. Now, some of you would have heard this name, Alfred Russel Wallace. Now, Alfred Russel Wallace was the guy that came up with, possibly before Darwin, but most certainly at least at the same time, and he is accredited for that. And even Darwin accepts that Alfred Russel Wallace had the same hypothesis, the origin of species, which Darwin is renowned for his theory of evolution. So Alfred Russel Wallace also was working very, very heavily on that for many years. Now, within this book, Alfred Russel Wallace was a great advocate for the supernatural because he had experienced so much of it. Now, he started skeptical, of course, which we all need to be. And he may have even started out to discredit and discount all the supernatural stuff which was going on around that time. It was a big fever in the sort of mid-1800s. There was all different sorts of seances going on all over Europe and America and things like that. And so lots of people, intellectuals, were called upon to investigate this, to see what on earth was going on, and to see if they could, see if there was any veracity, any truth in it. And so Wallace, being an intellectual, rightly would be sceptical about this stuff until he investigated it very, very deeply, and then he was an advocate of it because he couldn't deny it. But the passage I'm going to be reading to you now is important in that even though many prominent people, respected people, would vouch absolutely 1000% for something, the human skeptical mind is very, very powerful and dismissive, and for many reasons cannot compute, doesn't want to compute, feels terrified if they did acknowledge and accept this certain supernatural stuff, because it would throw a spanner in their works and it would compromise their God and their beliefs and all this different sort of stuff. And so when we look at people these days, we call them the sleeping masses, and it was no different in the past, people. There were some informed people, some intellectuals, some experienced people who were promoting the supernatural and metaphysical and all that different sorts of stuff. And the masses were exceedingly difficult to penetrate. And even if you show them 1000% proof, then they just don't want to accept it. So, let me just read you this. Unfortunately, human skepticism is a stronghold capable of defying any amount of testimony. And to begin with, Mr. Huxley, one of the very, very intellectual prominent figures of the time, maybe relations to Aldous Huxley and Julius Huxley, the very renowned intellectual brothers of recent times. Aldous Huxley wrote A Brave New World. Julius Huxley was a eugenicist. So Mr. Huxley, our men of science and our men of science accept, but so much as suits them and no more. Now, unfortunately, human skepticism is a stronghold capable of defying any amount of testimony. And to begin with, Mr. Huxley, our men of science accept, but so much as suits them and no more. Then there's the little, like a poem or something. It says, "O shame to men, devil with devil damned, firm concord holds, men only disagree, of creatures rational." So, men only disagree with creatures rational. Now then, let me just read you this following bit. How can we account for such divergence of views among men taught out of the same textbooks and deriving their knowledge from the same source? Clearly, this is but one more corroboration of the truism that two men see the same thing exactly alike. That two men do not see the same thing exactly alike. This idea is admirably formulated by Dr. J. Gareth Wilkinson in a letter to the Dialectical Society. Now this is it, this is the punchline, people. He says, "I have long," he says, "been convinced by the experience of my life as a pioneer in several heterodoxies." Heterodoxy means something outside of the orthodoxy. The orthodoxy, something that everybody readily accepts. Heterodoxies are something outside, like many other heterodoxies. So, in several heterodoxies, which are rapidly becoming orthodoxies, that nearly all truth is temperamental to us. or given in the affections and intuitions, and that discussion and injury do little more than feed temperament. So basically, it doesn't matter how much you say, what proof you come up with. People's truth is temperamental. Let me just read that for you again. He says that nearly all truth is temperamental to us, or given in the affections, so how we are affected by certain things, generates some denial or acceptance to certain things, and intuitions, if we just intuitively believe something rather than what we are presented with. We may be presented with some very sound, solid facts about something, but we just intuitively don't gel with that. It's kind of like, no, that don't gel with me, you know? So therefore, when we're looking for truth, we can see that there's many, many obstacles that present themselves in front of truth, and so they deflect us from following that very narrow passage into anything that could be considered to be true. But then we have to ask the question, what is true? And there you have it. You know, some people would be absolutely vehemently an adherent to certain theories, religions and those sort of things. And of course on my channel I've dealt with Christians a great deal throughout the years. And I have little time for entering into these debates or conversations because they are absolutely immovable. And we've all probably watched scholars speaking about the Bible, and you can get a scholar speaking about it from a deep-rooted Christian belief system, and then you can get somebody equally knowledgeable speaking about it from an atheist perspective, and you will never change either of them. It's not like the atheist is going to be converted by reading this stuff, because it just gets more and more ridiculous the more you learn about it, and the more you dissect the Bible, people, and you go back through the history and you listen to all different cultures and you listen to all different intellectuals, pro-Christianity and anti-Christianity, maybe from other religions like Islam, or ideologies like Buddhism, and they just tear it to pieces. And with historians, you can go back and you can go, well, look, it just doesn't work. And then if you get involved with Gnosticism, and you go back and you see what they were saying, and you look at what they present in scriptures and documents, you know, that existed at the same time, you can see that, oh my God, this Bible is just a very, very, very carefully selected conglomerate of bits of scripture bodged together that don't really mean anything or give us anything, just silly inferences that, you know, Jesus walked on water and rose from the dead. Well, let's follow back the efficacy, let's find the evidence, and then we can find evidence that never in actual fact happened, because there's so much other stuff written about it, which fortunately wasn't burnt by the Catholics, and even stuff like the Nag Hammadi and Dead Sea Scrolls, which have been found in the last 100 years. We've got those now on our side, and we can see there was a very, very different Jesus. And I was listening to something last night which was speaking about around, you know, Jerusalem, you know, the places where Jesus of Nazareth was apparently frequenting. Well, there were many other of these messiahs at the time, and there were lots of versions of Christianity and lots of versions of lots of other religions. You know, hundreds, if not thousands of them, you know, spread across the regions. But through the the advent of certain people in power, picking and choosing, filtering, burning, then we've been left with the Bible. And so, all I say is to Christians, for goodness sakes, just wake up, because this is the most simplest thing to try to get through to them on any reasonable level. All you do is you just say, look, if you, Christian, were born in the Middle East, if you're born in Iraq, in Syria, or, lots of other places around these regions, which are Arabic, then you would have been born into Islam, and you would be a devout believer in that, to a fanatical sickness sort of condition. And so praise the Lord that you weren't. But you have to realise that if you were, then you wouldn't have any time at all for Christianity. So it just stands to reason that it's just circumstantial, isn't it? It depends what pot you've been born into and how you've been boiled up and simmered into a certain conditioning of mind. Your minds have been conditioned, people, of course. In the Western world, we've been conditioned into this Christianity thing to our detriment. And so now we've got a massive amount of information. There is no excuse for being ignorant. And for those of you that are remotely religious, all I would say is, if you want to learn and have a handle on some sort of a reasonable reality which went on the world, then you do your homework. If you don't, if you just want, I pray to Jesus, I love Jesus, well, fine. Just live in your own pig ignorance, because that's all what you're doing, to be fair. So there you go. This book was written in 1875, 1880. That's what people were saying at that moment in time. Nothing's changed. We all see things differently. And one viewer, Christian, is asking me what my definition of evil is. This is how long and broad it is. Because, of course, well, if we're all pressed to state what evil is, well, there's going to be a lot of variance, isn't there? Particularly with people who haven't really thought about it. But what I said in response was, basically, look, here's a video which a scholar who isn't a Christian is reading from the Old Testament, where Yahweh is absolutely categorically demanding virgin sacrifices and all this different sorts of stuff. Well, that is my idea of evil. So if you want to take it from that, then you won't go far wrong. And I'm pretty sure it will be most people's idea of evil. If there's a pie in the sky and you've got people having fucked up visions and thoughts in their minds which tell them to sacrifice their own children because God will be well pleased. There's one instance in one of the books, maybe it's Judges, whereby there was this warlord and he was praying to Yahweh, the demiurge, the evil god, Satan. Oh, can you help me defeat my enemies? And God said to him, I can bless you with the defeat of your enemies for, the sacrifice of your firstborn. All this sort of heinous bollocks. And then people say, why would this God want the sacrifice of his children? If he loves you, your chosen ones, why would he be wanting that? And this is it, people. So go and do your history, look back, listen to things that have something to say about the Bible, which aren't trying to make a silk purse out of a pig's ear. Listen to what people are saying when they are seeking truth, and you will uncover a whole can of disgusting, verminous, putrid worms. That's Christianity for you, people. Anyway, enjoy your day. But remember, our truth is a subjective thing. It's highly premised on our intuition, on our gut feelings, on our culture, on our level of intellect, on our fear, on our desires, and a whole bunch of other things. So ultimate truth is an illusion, just like everything else.